Today's episode of Mac on Sports, we talk about the Rams beatdown against the Vikings as Sam Darnold and Minnesota come up short after an amazing season. We talk about the divisional round preview this weekend, the Rams going to Philadelphia, and the game that we're all excited for, which would be the Ravens and the Bills, Lamar versus Josh Allen. And then some college basketball talk. Kentucky takes down A&M to add to a fourth top 15 win, and just another night in the SEC as Ole Miss goes on the road to shock Bama, Missouri goes on the road and shocks Florida, and this conference is the gift that keeps on giving. It's a good one. Sit back and enjoy. Let's ride. What is going on, guys? Happy January the 16th, and the Minnesota Vikings lay an egg in Wild Card Weekend's Monday Night Football game against the Los Angeles Rams. An absolute disappointment from Minnesota, a team that came into this game 14-3 on the year, went into Week 18 to Detroit fighting for a 1 seed, and now 1 week later, they're packing their bags and heading to Cabo. They come up short. A Minnesota Vikings team where I thought Kevin O'Connell did a great job all season long with this Minnesota team. Look, I mean, the odds were not on their favor. They lost J.J. McCarthy in training camp. I think this Minnesota team actually came in with this season with not really a lot of playoff expectations, especially after losing J.J., and yet they still found a way to be competitive throughout the year. Kevin O'Connell drawing up schemes to make Sam Darnold's life a hell of a lot easier. Definitely played a role into it. Having Justin Jefferson on your roster is always going to help. And that defense with Brian Flores as defensive coordinator was very stout. But when it mattered the most, they get to a playoff performance against a Los Angeles Rams team who's been pretty average this year. We talked about it on the pod. Look, they started off really, really bad, and then they switched gears. And Sean McVay has done a great job at turning that football team around. They got healthy. They got Puka Nacua back. Cooper Kupp came back. And all of a sudden, you see the Los Angeles Rams win the NFC West. It wasn't a great division, but they did what they needed to. Host a playoff game. Unfortunately, had to go to Glendale, Arizona because of the wildfires in LA. Didn't really factor out that home crowd. The Rams still found a way to put on a performance, whether it was in LA or not. They dominated that football game for 60 minutes. That front seven won them that game. Minnesota got absolutely decimated in the trenches early on. I mean, I think when you look at the drafts that the Rams have done, they've done a great job. Jared Verse from Florida State, great defensive edge rusher. Sisk, good defensive tackle. Sure, you lose Aaron Donald, you just go and replace that front seven to the best of your ability. Now, you're never going to be able to replace a guy Hall of Fame-esque like Aaron Donald, but you can do your best to try to just make it just a good group, and that's exactly what they did. They're a group by committee instead of a group by one, which was Aaron Donald, and that Los Angeles Rams defense was phenomenal. They sacked Sam Darnold 9 times on Monday night as Sam Darnold lost 82 yards in those sacks. He was getting beat around. Look, part of it is the front seven just being dominant. Part of it is the Vikings offensive line not doing great on Monday. Part of it's Sam Darnold. I mean, a lot of these sacks were coverage sacks. I think the secondary for the Rams was doing a phenomenal job. But I also do believe Sam Darnold, man, just held on to the football way, way too long, put himself in some bad situations, took sacks that he probably needed or didn't need to take, and it ends up costing the Los Angeles Rams. Not necessarily a performance you want out of your quarterback in a playoff game. His QBR rating was a 13.6. He wasn't that great through the air. The pressure was getting to him. The Monday night game when he was on the Jets and they faced New England, he was seeing ghost, right? We kind of got to see that version of Sam Darnold once again. But look, I mean, I don't think this is all on Sam Darnold. The offensive line definitely played a factor. The play calling from Kevin O'Connell definitely played a factor. This is a guy in Kevin O'Connell I think is a phenomenal head coach, and I think he will have a lot of success in this league, no doubt about it. But we're looking at a guy who has struggled now in both playoff games. He was there when they lost to the New York Giants and Daniel Jones in Minnesota. Now you come up short on the road to a Rams team that you're still favored to win at, and it wasn't even a road game. It was really a neutral game. So a little disappointing there if you are Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings. You're going to want to definitely figure this out in the offseason. I do think they overachieved, though, to say the least. I think this is a year where I surely don't think any of us thought the Minnesota Vikings would be 14-3, and usually in any other year, 14-3, you're playing for a 1 seed, which they did, but you're probably hosting regardless if you get that one or not. This division in the NFC North is just an absolute unbelievable division. And you see the Detroit Lions with the 1 seed, and that's why the 1 seed is important, to not run into situations like this. On the flip side here, the Los Angeles Rams, though, I mean, Matthew Stafford is just aging like fine wine. I mean, this guy continues to perform at a high level, even in the latter half of his career. The running game with Kyron Williams is a huge factor. And then when you got guys like Puka Nacua, Tyler Higbee, even Cooper Kupp, I mean, man, you are a wide receiving core by committee, and that makes you very dangerous. And the Rams did whatever they wanted to. They went into halftime up 24-3. That game was over by half. Minnesota never had a response, and Los Angeles put it to them. And part of that is because Sean McVay, man, he is such a great coach, and he is a football mastermind. He already has a Super Bowl, man. And not saying the Rams are going to do it again this year, but it's tough to count out Sean McVay. He is a very, very bright football mind. Minnesota, they're going to have to go back into the offseason, kind of get their gears in check, figure out where it went wrong, and I'm sure part of it is that quarterback situation. Do you go with Sam Darnold next year, or do you let him go to free agency? That's a tough decision Minnesota's going to have to make. Do you re-sign him, or do you let him walk? You know, you just use a first-round pick on J.J. McCarthy. Do you want to develop him into being your franchise guy? That's Kevin O'Connell's guy, so I would probably expect you're going to want to ride with J.J., but we'll see what happens from the Minnesota Vikings perspective. Los Angeles, though, on the other hand, they now get ready to face the Philadelphia Eagles, and we can actually jump into that right now. Let's go into our divisional preview as we head into the weekend. 4 games: Houston at Kansas City, Washington at Detroit, Los Angeles at Philadelphia, and the granddaddy of them all, the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. Let's go in order here. Starting on Saturday, the 4:30 game, we have the Houston Texans traveling to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Chiefs coming off of a bye. In Arrowhead Stadium, Chiefs open up as an 8.5-point favorite. I'm pretty sure all of us expect Kansas City to win this game, and I think it probably will win handedly, if I were to say so myself. Look, I mean, this is a Kansas City Chiefs team that's been 15-2 this year. The one loss they took to the Broncos, they didn't play any of their starters. They've been the best team in football all season long. They've been absolutely phenomenal. They've already faced off with Houston in Kansas City this year on Saturday, December the 21st, right? About week 16. And Kansas City performed at a really high level in that game. Won 27-19. Patrick Mahomes had a pretty good day. Xavier Worthy had one of the better games of his season. This is a Kansas City Chiefs team I expect to win this game. I wouldn't say they're going to win it handedly, because at the end of the day, look, the playoffs is not easy, especially when you get to the divisional round. Everybody deserves to be here. But look, this is a Houston team that got a much-needed win against a Chargers team that I don't think a lot of us expected Houston to win that game, especially being underdogs on their home field. But look, D'Amico Ryans did a great job. Houston gets the win. They now shift gears and have to go and play the Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to be a tough one come Saturday. Now, flipping gears to the night game, though, between Washington and Detroit, this is a Jayden Daniels guy that is taking America by storm. A rookie quarterback, number 2 pick in the draft, has completely revived this Washington football organization. He has been absolutely an electric factory for Commander fans and for NFL enjoyable fans. Just your common fan, Jayden Daniels has been a guy that's fun to watch. And look, the hire of Dan Quinn was great. We know he's a good coach. He had it with Atlanta. He took him to a Super Bowl. Now he's always going to be remembered for the guy blowing a 28-3 lead. But we know that he is a very, very good coach. And he has brought a culture to Washington, a lot like Dan Campbell has brought a culture to Detroit. And those players rally for both those coaches. You know, this is a game where both offenses are really good, both defenses give up a lot of points, but both coaches preach tough, physical football. There's a lot of playmakers in this game, right? It's going to be a high-scoring affair. The over-under is 55.5. I do believe that is the highest over-under total this weekend. Detroit comes into this game as a 9.5-point favorite. Probably the right line. I mean, you see them coming off of a bye. They've been the best team, arguably, there with the Kansas City Chiefs all season long. Nobody has been able to contend with Detroit in the NFC. They've had their ways with a lot of teams this year, and they just blow them out, and Ben Johnson opens up the playbook like they're playing playground football. They've been very, very enjoyable to watch on the offensive side of the ball, whereas Washington's main kryptonite is they win shootouts, right? They struggle to stop teams sometimes on the defensive side, and I think I have to give the upper hand here to Detroit. I think Detroit's got too much firepower on offense. If Washington wants to get into a shootout with them, go for it, but it usually doesn't end well when teams try to go touchdown for touchdown with Detroit. Dan Campbell is going to have these Lions ready to go. Expect them to play a physical brand of football on Saturday night. Expect Ford Field to be rocking, right? This is a team last year that got all the way to the NFC Championship against San Francisco, had an opportunity to get to a Super Bowl, first time in a long time, and yet they just couldn't get it done. This is a year where they think this is their year to do it. I think Detroit will do it this year. I think if you look at the AFC and NFC, I think Detroit's probably the best team in football. Yes, I know Kansas City and whatnot, but Kansas City's got to go through a tougher stretch than I think Detroit's going to have to go through their playoff run. So I give the upper hand to Detroit. I think this is just their year to do it, but we'll see if they can finally get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. Dan Campbell has certainly brought a culture to Detroit. Now, can they finish the job is the big question in Detroit. I do believe, though, the Saturday games could be potential beatdowns, or maybe one of the Houston or Washington can keep it close going into the fourth quarter and maybe shock us, right? I don't think that happens either way, but it is playoff football. And like I talked about with Houston and Kansas City, you want to get on them early, right? Washington's going to want to come here to Detroit. Get on them early, make them play from behind, try to get as cushion of a lead while you can as they show a little bit of rust factor, if there is a rust factor coming off the bye week. Go to Sunday's slate, 3 o'clock on NBC. The Los Angeles Rams get the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles took care of the Packers pretty easily on Sunday afternoon. Now shifting gears next Sunday, you're getting the Los Angeles Rams, who's a little bit of a different beast. This is a Rams team that's a lot more healthy than what Green Bay was. This is a Rams team that has playoff pedigree. Okay, Jordan Love and that Packers team, look, they beat the Dallas Cowboys last year. They took San Francisco down to the wire, but Jordan Love is still a young quarterback. This is a guy, Matthew Stafford, that has won a Super Bowl, that has played in every atmosphere possible. Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl. It's going to be a tough matchup here for Philadelphia. I think it's going to be a really close one, though. I do. I think the Philadelphia crowd's definitely going to play a part here in this. We saw how dominant the front seven was for the Los Angeles Rams. Expect to see another big-time performance out of that front seven, but you're going up against a different offensive line. Philadelphia's got a hell of a lot of better offensive line than what Minnesota does. Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, even Mekhi Becton. They got some dogs on their offensive line. One of the best offensive lines in the National Football League. It helps giving Jalen Hurts all the time in the world. Look, I don't think Jalen played phenomenal against Green Bay, but it was enough to give him a victory. I expect this to come down to the wire here. I do think Philadelphia wins this game once again, and I do believe that we see an Eagles-Lions NFC Championship. I think this is going to be a dogfight. I think this is going to be more so on the low-scoring end. I actually think both defenses are going to have really good performances here, and I think this comes down to the wire. Maybe like a 21-17 Eagles win on Sunday, but I do think it's going to be a very good game nonetheless. And then the last one, kind of the main appetite or main course everybody's waiting for, right? You're all waiting for me to talk about it, and that's the best game we have all weekend. And I don't even think it's a close second. And that is the Baltimore Ravens going on the road to the Buffalo Bills. This is a legit football game, a legit Super Bowl potential matchup if they were both in the AFC. Look, I mean, it's an AFC championship game just being played in the divisional. That's the best way I could put it. The spread is only Baltimore by 1. The over-under is 51.5. There's a lot of excitement here that you are seeing in this game potentially, right? It could be a high-scoring affair. It could come down to the last possession. It could be a walk-off field goal for the win. We always have classics in the playoffs, and usually when the Buffalo Bills are playing, something crazy usually happens, right? We've seen their recent history of years against the Kansas City Chiefs. We have crazy games all the time when they get together in the postseason. Well, when Baltimore and Buffalo get together, Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, it's very hard to get much better than that. I mean, especially this year. The number 1 and number 2 candidate for MVP is Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Those are the 2 top guys for the MVP award this year. It is going to be an absolute unbelievable affair between these two teams. Look, this is a Baltimore Ravens team that has been very good this year, right? They've been very good. They started off maybe a little slow. That 0-2 start had a potential to go 0-3 in Dallas, but then they kicked the crap out of Dallas, and that week kind of changed and propelled their season, right? I think Baltimore here, going on the road to Buffalo, is a perfect... If a team wants the recipe to beat the Buffalo Bills, it would be the Baltimore Ravens. Even more so than the Kansas City Chiefs this year. Look, we saw Buffalo and Kansas City get together this year, and Buffalo beat Kansas City. But if you're looking at the recipe on beating Buffalo, it might be what Baltimore has, and that's Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I think that 1-2 punch is so deadly where it is going to be tough for Buffalo to stop them. But, counterpoint, Orchard Park at night, Buffalo at night, it's going to be cold. It is going to be really, really cold. And the lights are going to be on. The sun's going to be down. That's playoff football. And Buffalo's going to be ready to go. No doubt in my mind, Buffalo's going to be ready to go. And I think this Buffalo Bills football team is trying to make a statement. Because I talked about it last episode, and I'll say it again. The biggest kryptonite of Josh Allen's career so far has been the divisional round. He's 5-1, 4-1, 5-1, I believe, in the wild card. Been very good. But once you see the divisional, this is a guy in Josh Allen that is 1-3. He struggles here. And then, of course, he's 0-1 in the AFC Championship. But the divisional has been the tough thing of getting over that hump. We saw Lamar had the opportunity last year to get to a Super Bowl with Baltimore. That's surely on his mind. I expect him to come out playing with some fire. But we have a hell of a game here between Baltimore and Buffalo on Sunday. And I think this is the best game by far, and I think anybody could agree with me there. So if the other games don't go to plan, I do believe this one will, and I do believe this one will be coming to an absolute classic down to the wire, and we will talk about it on Monday's show. Really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a phenomenal football game between two really, really good organizations, two really good quarterbacks, and two great football teams. Do I go with all the home favorites? I'm not trying to. Well, Buffalo's not a favorite, but I just have a soft spot in my heart for Buffalo. I do. And I've over the 4 years of this podcast, I've always thought Buffalo's going to break through at some point while we're doing this podcast. I don't know how long this podcast is going to go. I don't know how many years I'm going to do it, right? But I enjoy doing it. But I do believe at some point throughout my podcast journey of Mac on Sports, we will see Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills get to a Super Bowl. Is it this year? I don't know. It's the question I ask every year. I'm always the one that's really, really high on Buffalo, and then they make me look stupid and let me down. I buy what they're selling. I kind of start believing, thinking, oh, they might be something. And once I buy in, they usually lose a heartbreaker in the playoffs or just don't show up. Is it this year? I don't know. It's a tough stretch. Playing Baltimore and then more likely than not having to go to Arrowhead and play Kansas City and then get to a Super Bowl, that's a tall task. But this is the best I've ever seen Josh Allen play this year. Josh Allen has been absolutely spectacular this year, as has Lamar Jackson. But what I'm so impressed with Josh Allen this year is the fact he's not been able to turn over the football at the level he has been over in years past. He's only had 6 interceptions this year. He's got 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. I think his biggest kryptonite for a while was the interceptions. He was throwing a lot of bad passes. He's got the best QBR rating in the league this year. He's been the smartest with the football he has throughout his entire career. He's playing his best football. I am leaning Buffalo. Thank you for watching. The college basketball portion of the podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere. It got cut off on the recording, but it is on the actual podcast, so go feel free to listen. It is Mac on Sports on every platform possible. I love you guys, and I will see you guys next episode. Peace out.